what I want to talk about today is the idea of contentment, gratitude, versus complaining and a sense of discontent. Those go to the heart of real happiness in life. Unhappiness is discontent, and happiness is a sense of contentment. And how does one achieve that and find that in life? And there's a critical passage in this week's Parsha where it gives the very essence of what discontent is about. The Parsha says, "Vayehi ha'am k'mis'ona nimra be'ozne Hashem," and the people were complaining. They were complaining, as you could imagine. What were they complaining about? They were complaining about the food, that the catering was not good in the desert. But the amazing thing about their complaint is that they go on to say, "Zacharnu et hadaga shenochal b'Mitzrayim." We remember the fish, the good food that we ate in Egypt. So this is a nation, Hashem took them out of Egypt, gave them freedom, looks after them in the desert, the manna falls from heaven every day, and then they're saying, well, this is not good enough for us. Zacharnu, we remember the fish, we would like to go back because things were better for us in Egypt. That has got to be the epitome of ingratitude. It's like the height of discontentment and complaining. And the tendency, however, is when confronting something like this, is to look at it from a moral point of view, and then we get all outraged. How could the people behave in this way? It was so ungrateful to Hashem. He gave them everything, and now they're complaining at Him. And yet, in order to be able to get to the bottom of this, we have to move beyond the moralistic judgment and look towards the deeper part of what this is. Because at root, what we're dealing here is with a lack of gratitude, ingratitude. The people were ungrateful. Hashem gave them everything, and they were still complaining. But the amazing thing is, because we know that when we're looking at the Parsha, we're looking at it from the perspective of Pirkei Avot. We know that one of the most important Jewish values is gratitude, what we call hakarat tov. But then let me put this to you. There is not one mention of hakarat tov, of gratitude, in the whole of Pirkei Avot. You will not find it once. You'll not find a call to gratitude or a criticism of ingratitude. It does not appear explicitly in Pirkei Avot. How is that possible? If gratitude is the foundation of Jewish morality and Pirkei Avot is about ethics and values, why is it not there? And this is a principle that we've explored a lot in this series of Shiurim, and that is that Pirkei Avot deals with the root psychology, or what our sages call midot, character traits, rather than the values and the actions, because the values and the actions are actually the extension of the character traits. So then what we really have to ask ourselves is, what is the root psychology of gratitude? What is the root psychology of ingratitude? What are the midas, the character traits that deal with that? That's the essence of it. And there's an amazing Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, because you see, Pirkei Avos is very focused on root causes and going down to the fundamentals. And there's this Mishnah in chapter 2, Mishnah 13. One of the greatest sages of the Talmud, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he gathers his top 5 students and he says to them, I have a mission for you. He says, Ezo hi tsu uru'u, go out and look, which means I want you to go and do research, think about this, don't give me an answer on the spot, go out, think about it, talk to people. You're not going to only find the answer to this in the books, you're going to find the answer to this in people in society. Go out and look. Ezo hi derech tova sheyidbak ba'adam. What is a good path that a person should choose? In other words, what is the most important character trait of all? And Rabbeinu Yonah says, why is he asking them this? It's not like you have a class and you have an interesting debate. What's the most important value? What's the most important character trait? No, he's saying life is about focus. So he was saying to them this: if you're going to focus on getting one thing right in life, what would that one thing be that will influence everything else? And if you get this right, everything else will fall into place. And so he said, now go out and think about it and come back with an answer. And they came back with different answers. Rabbi Eliezer says this, and I just want to focus on Rabbi Eliezer's answer. Because Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai asked the question in the positive and the negative. He said, what's the one good thing you should focus on? And what is the most negative character trait that you should avoid? Those are the questions he asked. And so Rabbi Eliezer came back and he said, it comes down to this character trait. Ayin Tovah or Ayin Ra'ah. A good eye or a bad eye. Okay? That is Ayin Ra'ah or Ayin Tovah. Now, what is a good eye and a bad eye? So the Rambam says here, and Rabbi Vadim Bar Tunura follows in the Rambam's approach on this, as he often does. Rambam says, Ayin Tovah is a person who is content with what they have. There's a sense of contentment that they have enough. And Ayin Ra'ah is discontent, always need more. And the commentators there link it as well to remember that one of the root character traits, which is the source of all in the negative, is kina, which is jealousy. So discontent is linked to jealousy, which is linked, what Rabbeinu Yonah actually says Ayin Tovah and Ayin Ra'ah is, he says it's generosity versus stinginess. Ayin Tovah is generosity. Ayin Ra'ah, the bad eye, is stinginess, which is, does one look at the world in terms of abundance and kindness, or do you look at the world in terms of scarcity? And so what you have here at root, and that's what they're saying, if you want to get to the most important quality that a person should focus on, so you have a cluster of positive character traits, which is contentment, generosity, abundance, kindness, that's in one cluster. And then in the opposing negative cluster is scarcity, stinginess, discontent, and from that flows the ingratitude. So we are saying, where does Pirkei Avot deal with gratitude? It doesn't, because at the root of gratitude is contentment. At the root of contentment is the Ayin Tovah. It's seeing things with abundance. Now, where does that begin? In other words, obviously everybody wants to be content. Who doesn't want to be content? Who wants to be in a state of discontent? Jealousy is constantly in a state of discontent. It just manifests in terms of looking at other people. So you seeing yourself, and then you seeing another person, they've got that, I want what they've got. But the root of jealousy is discontent, where you're not happy with what you've got yourself. So of course everybody wants to be content. Who wants to be discontented? Who wants to be jealous? Everybody wants the generosity, the sense of abundance, the sense that I have enough of what. Where does that come from? So that comes from a very famous Mishnah, chapter 4, Mishnah 1. Mishnah says, Eizehu Ashir, who is truly wealthy? Hasamech bechelko, someone who is happy with his lot. Now, what does that mean? The Maharal says an important thing on this Mishnah, and he relates it because the Mishnah debates a whole number of different character traits. And he says the core of this, and this is where contentment comes from, the core of what we're talking about is a state of mind and emotions that feels that what I need is inside me and within my life, it's not outside of me. In other words, the natural human reaction is when you're feeling a sense of discontent, it's because there's something that I don't have. And if I don't have it, it's not here, it must be somewhere else. Maybe somebody else has got it, maybe nobody's got it, but I want it. Whereas the philosophy and the psychology and the value system of contentment is abundance. I have what I need. And everything I need to be happy is within me. And I just have to dig deep to find it. It's a fundamental psychological switch where everything is flipped. The answers to my problems are not outside of me, they're inside of me. Of course, we're talking here within reason. I mean, it's one thing a person maybe doesn't have a roof over their head, they don't have clothes, they're living in abject poverty, then there are certain practical things that a person needs to have in order to survive, in order to live with a minimum life of dignity. Of course, but those are practical. But there is a psychological mindset that says, Hasamech bechelko, I have it inside of me and it's not outside of me. Jealousy is my contentment and my happiness is something that somebody else has got and I'm looking outside of myself. So it flips it all around. But then comes this question. How can you be so sure you have it? Maybe there's something you do lack. How do you know that you have everything you need and that the answers to our problems lie internally, psychologically, not practically? And again, we're saying that with all of the caveats which are required. So notice the language of the Mishnah. It says, Samech bechelko, happy with his portion, his lot. And all of the commentators there, Rashi, Rabbeinu Bachaya, the Rashbats, the Rivash, all of the commentators say it's deeply related to faith in Hashem, bitachon. because it comes from that deep down belief that says, I have what I'm meant to have because Hashem has given it to me. And if I was meant to have something else, I would have it. And therefore Hashem has given me everything that I need, and whatever I need is within me. And if I have a sense of discontent, it is to think psychologically how to address it instead of looking for an external, superficial solution to that. And that then comes with an awareness of abundance, meaning there is a scarcity mentality and abundance mentality. Is there enough in the world? Hashem's made this world. Whatever there is in the world is what there is meant to be. Hashem has no limitations on him. He can produce whatever. If some person has more, that doesn't mean I have less. It means Hashem wants that person to have more. He wants me to have less. Or the other way around. I don't have less because that person has more. There is indeed enough to go around. And the Ibn Ezra says this is the way out of jealousy. He says this in the 10th of the 10th, in the 10th of the 10 Commandments, when he's giving his commentary on the Chumash, he says that it is about an understanding of trust in Hashem. I have what I'm meant to have. And you see, the opposite of it is the Ayin Ra'ah. So the root of all of this is the Ayin Tovah, is the good eye. That's what we're saying. That's the root. And that leads to contentedness. That leads to gratitude. The Ayin Ra'ah sees a world of scarcity. It sees people in competition with me. Therefore, there's got to be a sense of jealousy. Do we look at the people around us as threats or potential collaborators? Do we look at the people around us as competitors or partners, as antagonists or friends? There's a philosophy of generosity, abundance, contentment, trust in the world, trust in Hashem. That is the Ayin Tovah. The Ayin Ra'ah is the negative, it's the scarcity, it's the selfishness, it is the sense of I'm in a war of attrition with the people around, and there's a limited amount and scarcity of goods available, and if they have more, then I have less. And this touches on the most fundamental quality of life. The amazing thing is that the Mishnah there says, it says, Hasamach bechelko, that is the Ezu Ashir, and then it says, what happens to such a person? Says the Mishnah, Ashrecha ba'olam hazeh v'tov lach la'olam haba. You'll be happy in this world, and it will be good for you in the next world. Meaning, to have that sense of trust and contentment will improve the quality of your life in this world, and it will help you, and it will give you the goodness and the reward in the world to come, because it's going to be the midah, the character trait that's going to affect everything. The people in the desert missed it. They said, well, you know, the manna was falling. We've had enough of the manna. We've had enough of it. And what about the wonderful fish that we had in Egypt, even though they were slaves in Egypt? But that ingratitude came from the Ayin Ra'ah, the discontent, the lack of faith in Hashem. And the amazing thing is this, the manna from heaven is actually Hashem's teaching how to have trust, because the manna fell an exact portion every single day. And our sages teach us, and Rashi actually asked us, what were they complaining about? There's an amazing midrash, and I want to just share with you what I think is the depth of this midrash. The midrash says that the manna tasted of whatever you wanted. So they asked the question, why were they dissatisfied? Whatever you wanted, you could make it be. And I think part of the depth of that midrash is this: the answers to dissatisfaction and discontentment in life is in your mind. You can turn your portion into anything you want, but their mindset was wrong. They couldn't take the blessing out of the manna because they didn't view it with the right mindset. Now, this is all easy in words, but how do you do this? Okay, now we understand the root cause of Ayin Tovah, of the good eye, with its generosity and its contentment, is faith in Hashem. But you know, that's words. That's easier said than done. How do we actually find the keys here to happiness and contentment? Two practical things the Torah gives us. One is the mitzvah of davening, and the other is the mitzvah of chesed. Davening, prayer. You know what prayer is? When we daven, and we daven 3 times a day, prayer is an exercise in faith. Because Hashem doesn't need our prayers. He knows what we want. But every day we remind ourselves, He's the source of all blessing. And we daven not only for ourselves, we daven for the people around us. So it is an expression of generosity of spirit and faith in Hashem. And we're reminding ourselves, whatever we want is in the hands of Hashem. And if we don't have it, it's because Hashem has said, that's not for us now, for whatever His reasons are. And then we make peace with that. And chesed, the acts of chesed, means we train ourselves in thinking abundantly and generously. So those are two mitzvahs that give us. But here's a very interesting thing. Discontent is not all negative. You see, we know, and we discussed this last week, according to the Rambam, and he draws it directly out of Pirkei Avot, one of the most important guiding principles in character and human psychology is balance, finding the middle path. So then I ask you this, what is the middle path? Is there any good in discontent? And is there any good in jealousy? Is there something good that can come out of this? Hashem has made it part of human nature. Is there in the middle path? Rambam says an amazing thing in his introduction to Pirkei Avot, where he's giving examples of the different character traits. He says, what is the opposite extreme of the Ayin Tovah, the good eye? Okay, there's the Ayin Ra'ah, which is the negative eye. But he says something which, when I read it, it's like mind-blowing. He says, you know what it is? Atzlut. Atzlut is, he wrote in Arabic, by the way, the Rambam's commentary, because he lived in Egypt and in that part of the world. It was a translation into the Hebrew, but I think it's often translated as laziness. I don't know what the original Arabic is. My Arabic's a little bit rusty. But what I think it's saying is apathy. You see, there is something very powerful in jealousy and discontent and a sense of ambition, and that is that actually there are serious problems in the world. Generally in society and in our lives, we need ambition and discontent to solve those problems. See, you can take this sense of faith in Hashem to an extreme that can cause negativity. You say, look, it's all in the hands of Hashem. I have what I'm meant to have, and that's it, and I sit back and I do nothing, and I feel completely content with everything because it comes from Hashem. But Hashem doesn't want that. Our sages say we're not allowed to rely on a miracle. If a person is sick, we fight and we bring in the doctors and we do whatever we can. If everyone needs parnosa, you have to earn a living, so you fight to go earn a living. And you strive to earn a better living and to build the business further and to have more clients and to look after more people, because the struggle of making this world better is driven by competition, by jealousy, by a sense of discontent with the status quo, by seeking to solve a problem. Education comes from the problem of ignorance. Medicine comes from the problem of ill health. All of the greatest human achievements are driven by discontent with the status quo. So there is a power in that, and one could go to this opposite extreme of apathy. That's the atzlut that the Rambam is talking about. And so what is truly needed then is this middle path, where somehow and this is what our sages call upon us to do. This is the mitzvah that we have complete and utter trust and faith in Hashem. But at the same time, we know Hashem wants us to strive. We do our best, and then we accept the results. We do our best to earn the best living we can. Then whatever Hashem decrees for us, we accept that. We do our best to bring health into the world and to make a person well. And then whatever Hashem decrees after that, we hand that over to Him. We do our best to solve the problems in the world and solve the problems in our own life. But after we've done our best, we then hand it over to Hashem. And so we have to live in that middle path between contentment and discontentment, between kindness and generosity to the people around us, and also being in competition, because competition builds businesses. Our sages say it also increases wisdom. It says, Kinat sorfrim tarbe chochma. When there is jealousy amongst the great scholars, more wisdom comes into the world. There's positivity that comes from the natural human inclination for competition, but then we have to work between the acceptance and the striving, the sense of contentment with a sense of discontent, the acceptance of what is, but the striving to make it better. And in that balance, we then find the magic. But after we've put in everything, we hand over to Hashem and we say, Eizehu ashir hasamech b'chelko. We take joy and pride. That brings us the sense of deep happiness that we have in life. It allows us to look with an Ayin Tovah, a good and generous eye, to all of the people around us, to life itself. We make peace with it. We find genuine happiness in our striving to make this world into a better place. Thank you.